The legendary Ayrton Senna described karting as the purest driving experience and the most breathtaking sport in the world. We have two entrepreneurs with us who are equally passionate about karting because they feel speed has been pivotal to their startup journey. Welcome to Bits to Billions, the unicorn story, Harshil, Mathur and Shashank Kumar, the founders of Razorpay, one of India's leading startups currently valued at $7.5 billion. So, Ayrton Senna described why he loved karting. In fact, his first vehicle was a kart that his dad made for him. Why do you guys love karting?
I think I've always had a fascination with speed, growing up and watching Formula One and other things.
Who was your favorite?
Schumacher, of course.
Okay.
So, yeah, I always had a fascination for speed, and I think karting makes you feel have that childlike memory come back, right? Of going around a racetrack, and there's no frills, there's not a lot of things around like that, not a lot of comfort around it. It's very raw, it's very basic, it's just go around and drive as fast as you can, right? So it brings that childlike nostalgia back for me.
What about you, Shashank?
In a startup, right, it's a lot about speed. From day one, one of the things that as a founder, we always think about is are we moving fast, right? Are we going, we should not slow down, right? We'll have these curves, these turns, these things coming on, but we have to navigate those, right? We have to keep going at very high speed and not to crash, but be at number one and be ahead of everyone.
Right. Now, while it fuels your need for speed, the downside is, this moving fast and breaking things can also have a detrimental impact on startups. So how do you maintain the need for speed with the need to, stay sane and stay stable?
Yeah, I mean, see, karting is not just about going fast, right? If you just go fast, you'll crash, right? And which is true for startups, which is true for karting, right? So it's all about going with that speed, but at the same time having the right balance to ensure that you are not hitting and not just crashing into a wall, right? And I think that's where I can draw a parallel from the startup world, right? Where you want to move fast, you want to do things and scale exponentially, but you don't want to scale so randomly that you don't have control on where you're going. Right. So I think both of these things come together very well.
Right. So Shashank, all set for a race today. Who's the more competitive between the two of you? Who usually ends up winning?
I think I'm a lot more competitive than Shashank is.
Shashank, are you ready to take him up on that challenge?
I would absolutely agree on that.
Let's see how the races pan out today.
Yeah.
As promised, that turned out to be quite a competitive race between the founders of Razorpay. And Harshil, you said that you're the more competitive of the two, but there was one point in the race where, Shashank's car just rammed into yours. Shashank, I was hoping you would overtake him. What happened?
Yeah, I think that was intention, and then Harshil was like, look, I'm not gonna let that happen, and then we rammed.
I'm not gonna let him overtake, right? So I was driving in a chill mood, and then I realized, oh, he's trying to overtake. Then I got even more serious about it.
So we saw collision between the founders on track, but do these collisions happen in office as well between the two?
All the time.
All the time. I mean, see.
I think a lot of times we discuss, debate, argue, all those things happen. But at the end of the day, I think what is important, we disagree and commit to a certain direction, right? Whatever we feel more passionate about.
Ultimately has his way between the two of you?
So I think it depends a lot on the situation, right?
Yeah.
See, both of us know that, at least we have that inherent trust that both of us know that we are both fighting for the same thing, right? We are both fighting for Razorpay and for what is good for the company. But sometimes we might have difference of opinion on how certain things should be done. So we argue it out, and if we can't finally agree to something, then we have broad contours on, okay, if it's something to do with tech and product vision, SHK has the final call. If it's something to do with business direction, business execution, I'll have the final call. So we have some broad contours on that, but mostly we don't need to reach there. Generally we are able to argue it out and come to a conclusion that, okay, let's do this and let's try this. If it doesn't work, we'll do it your way.
Yeah, I think it's also, what we have seen who is more passionate about a certain issue, right? Who is more passionate about a certain topic. That also plays a significant role, because at the end of the day, like, you really want to trust your co-founder's instinct on certain things.
Let me also ask you about, where you started and how it began. So I remember, Harshil, you've said this many times that you faced almost 100 rejections from bankers before someone finally agreed to give, Razorpay a chance. So what gave you that kind of perseverance to keep going, keep going? Did it help? Did Shashank kind of support you during that time? And I remember you saying that, many people also did not know what a payment gateway is at that point. So what has changed and what kind of kept you going at that point?
See, I think in the early days, the co-founders of the company are like two people in the same pod, right? Like, you are the only person who understands what I'm going through, and I am the only person who understands what you are going through, right? So there's of course a lot of mutual support that we both lend each other on. And I think the one thing that was very clear for us from the start was there was a problem that customers were facing, because we were constantly talking to our customers, right? So the rejections were coming from bankers and partners and other people, but not from our customers. Every customer we spoke to, they agreed that the problem exists and I have faced this, and if you solved it, I would love to be with you guys, right? So that is one thing that kept us going, right? And whenever one of us would feel sad, I'll come back from a meeting and I'll say, hey, this guy is not allowing us, and I don't know, why did you get into this space, right? We could have gotten into some space where we are in control of our destiny. Yeah. Why did you choose fintech as a domain? And then the other guy would have to explain that, hey, there is a problem that customers are facing. Once we get through this, then there are a lot of customers waiting for us, right? So let's just figure out a way out of it. Let's just hustle through it. And I think once we go through that, and that's what happened. Once we passed that initial point, right, and once we crossed that barrier, and once we launched, we had so many customers coming to us. And now, as we start scaling and as we started growing, the bankers came back to us and said, hey, we want to work with you guys, right? So those equations flip very quickly. You just need to have the perseverance, and the only thing that is important is, does your customer want you? That is the only thing that matters at the end of the day.
Right. And I remember you got an offer from Microsoft, which I think had a CTC of over 1 crore in the US. And you were working at Schlumberger in the Middle East, which is also a dream company, when it comes to IITs. What did your parents say when you said, I'm leaving Microsoft, I'm leaving Schlumberger, I'm coming back and starting up?
I had a very interesting conversation with my father. So when I told him that, I'm thinking of leaving this and thinking of doing something on my own. So he asked me, like, how much will you earn? I said, like, I'll be earning zero pretty much for a very long time, probably a year. Right, so our middle class background, right? I mean, he reacted in a way, oh, you'll go from there to zero. Like, that's not something.
1 crore to zero after 4 years at IIT.
You're moving in the reverse direction in life.
Yeah, because there is a lot of appeal to working in US and Microsoft and all those kind of things, and I'm leaving all that comfort to come back to India and to start. But then I had a very emotional conversation with my father. Like, look, do you want me to come back to India, right? Because I'll be near you, I'll be able to meet you more often, right? If you don't bless me, that I may not come back to India ever. And I think that just really melted him, right? Because
what was your pitch to your dad, Harshil? He played the India card, the family card.
Very similar one. Like my pitch to my dad was, I just told him that, have faith in me. I can get a job like this anytime in my life, right? But this is something I cannot try again, right? Like I will have responsibilities, life gets complicated after a point of time. Right now I'm free, I can take this risk. And worst comes to worst, give me 2 years. If it doesn't happen, I'll pick up a similar job again, and trust me that I can find a job again. So I think that just convinced him, right? Like that, okay, let's give him this chance. And if it goes through, right? So.
And how do they react today when they see Razorpay, valuation 7.5 billion, and Shashank is a billionaire and Harshil is a millionaire. How has their reaction changed?
And I don't think they can believe it. Still very difficult to believe and digest and accept it, as a reality, right? But I think my father always tells me that, I think all the success is good, but you should keep doing good work.
Yeah, my father is like a typical Indian dad, right? So he always has more expectations than what I achieve, right? So
7.5 now 10 billion.
Yeah, I'll come back to him and say, hey, we are valued this much, and he'll be like, okay, but this company is valued that much. What are you guys doing? Right? So he'll always come back and he keeps saying this one thing, right? Sky is the limit, right? So he I don't think of course he's happy and he loves what we have done so far, but I think he just keeps pushing us, like, yes, you guys need to do more, right? So don't get content with what you have done so far.
Razorpay's valuation jumped from $1 billion to $7.5 billion in just 14 months, and it is now the most valued among unlisted fintechs. But what exactly does the company do? Most founders begin their startup journey to solve a problem. Razorpay is one such story. In 2014, Harshil, Mathur and Shashank Kumar began working on starting up a company of their own. They soon realized that it was a struggle for the founders to outsource payments, manage their finances and payroll. That is when Mathur and Kumar decided to build a platform that supports startups in their growth journey. In the last 7 years, Razorpay has diversified its offerings, and today their products are helping startups to handle customer and vendor payments, collections, payroll automation, and tax payments. One of the most attractive bets of the company is their neo-banking platform, Razorpay X, that allows companies to open and manage current accounts, automate payments, and track spends. By 2021, the company had handled payment volumes worth $60 billion. And in 2022, Razorpay has set a target of $90 billion.
We're taking you inside the famous Razorpay penthouse, where the founders of Razorpay, Harshil, Mathur and Shashank Kumar, continue to live till date. This served as a base for a very long time for many early employees of Razorpay who used to stay here, pull out all-nighters to really hatch the plot, hatch the strategy as far as Razorpay is concerned. Let's check in with the founders. Hey Harshil, Shashank. So after a game of karting, I see it's a game of TT at home. Who's going to win this one?
This was fabulous.
I mean, all the sport games.
Okay, maybe after this game, we'll get some time to talk to both of you. Let's see who wins this one.
Harshil, Mathur and Shashank Kumar, two widely respected founders of the startup world, met as students in IIT Roorkee. After graduating, Kumar, who was Mathur's senior, floated the idea of the two of them starting something of their own at some point. Kumar worked with Microsoft for 2 years, while Mathur got hired by Schlumberger and moved on to build their new venture in a year's time. A year and several rejections later, Razorpay kickstarted its journey with a seed funding of $9 million led by leading investment firm Tiger Global. Today, the company enables payments and banking solutions for over 8 million businesses and has added a host of marquee investors to its cap table. But Mathur and Kumar have not only been building Razorpay, the founders have been active angel investors and started an investment fund named Mars Short to invest in early-stage Indian startups. The fund has invested in over 18 startups including OneCode, MyDukaan and VoluPay.
Shashank, you managed to even the odds with that game of table tennis after losing very badly at karting. So I guess you're feeling better about that now.
Yeah, I beat him in every single sport, so it's fine.
No, but I was just mentioning that, this Razorpay penthouse is supposedly the place where it all began. So tell us about the significance of this house and what it means for both of you.
When we moved into Bangalore, right, we were like already a group of 7-8 people, and we needed a place where we could just work and stay and do everything, right? Like we didn't have time to find an office or anything like that. So we found this place, and we found it really amazing. It was really big and spacious, right? So about 8-10 of us moved into this place, and we used to stay there, work here, everything, right? And those were really exciting times. Like you will see people working in this area. There was no TT table back then, so people will sit here and work. People will sit on the dining table and work. People will sit across this place, and these bedrooms.
So this is like your own garage, basically.
Yeah.
it acted like that.
It acted like that. Yeah. And the bedrooms would be like interview rooms, right? Like we would hire somebody, and somebody comes in on an interview, we'll take him to the bedroom and do an interview there. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I remember like someone came for the interview in like full suits and everything. And I took that person outside on the roof for the interview, and he was really surprised to see all this, all this energy in this, but also
no, but
very
what
informal.
I find interesting is both of you still continue to stay under the same roof, like even after 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
So, does it get too much of each other? I mean, first of all, you're in office and then at home and then on weekends, it's like you're forever in that startup bubble. So,
actually, it's the other way around now, because the company obviously has scaled quite a bit. So we actually don't get so much face time in office with each other because we are kind of busy with our, individual activities, right? Yeah. So this actually gives a good chance for us to connect over the weekend.
That's the advantage of us being friends first and co-founders later, right? So we've always been friends for much longer than we have been co-founders.
If you can't shout at him in office, you can come home and say,
Yeah.
Shashank, what do you do?
Or I can just,
SHK, why did you do it?
Or I can just beat him in a game of go-karting.
Right, but let me also, talk to you about the Razorpay journey. So when you all started off in this house or penthouse, it was a payments company, a PG company, and payments still continues to be a core business for you today, where you're powering payments for Zomato, Swiggy, Oyo, etc. But today it's a very different company, right? You also have lending, you have neo-banking. So did this happen organically? Did the push come from your investors? Did the push come from yourself because you had to find out new avenues for making money? So how did the Razorpay journey evolve?
I think it was primarily driven by customers, right? Like one of the things that we've always followed is what an advice that YC gives you is make something people want, right? And one of the crux of that advice is to keep talking to your customers, right? Like what are they facing more problems with? What issues do they face, which lies on tangents of what you do, and can you fix it, right? So I would, and both me and Shashank would keep meeting our customer base even today and ask them, hey, what more can Razorpay do for you? What are the other issues that you face in your business? What are other issues you face in your financial operations? And that is how the extension happened. So we started with payments and we kept asking them, and they said, hey, reconciliation is a challenge, payroll is a challenge, and we don't get access to credit. Like all of these problems keep coming organically in customer conversations. And we just have to find what are we hearing most frequently, and then just keep hitting that, right? So we started with payments, and then we built a lot of tools around reconciliation, around smart collect, around subscription payments and so on. And then we realized, okay, financial transaction management over the bank account itself is a big challenge. So we launched Razorpay X, and then we launched payroll because payroll is the most frequently used financial tool by any business. We've launched tax payments because that's one of the most common kind of payments that a business has to do. We launched capital because credit demand is very, very high in MSME segment, and we need to find a way to solve that. So it happened organically, just through customer conversations. I think that is the crux of it.
But there is also stuff that you decided not to do. For example, Razorpay never got into wallet, UPI. Do you never want to be a consumer-facing business? Like, will it always be a business-to-business unicorn? Is that the way it's going to be?
So I would not, like, it's hard to ever say never on something because like we don't know how the ecosystem shapes up. But the way I would put it is that our core customer base is a business.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's our core customer base.
Yeah.
So everything we build, even if we build something consumer side, it's built with the business in mind. How can we help our business? For example, we launched Magic Checkout recently, right, where we allow customer to save information across Razorpay merchants. Now, in some ways, it's a customer play because the customer creates a profile across Razorpay. But for us, the incentive or the reason for doing this is so that our business's conversions increase. So our business transaction volume increase. So everything is built with the business as the first stakeholder, and then every other stakeholder is followed from there.
Right. Shashank, a lot of people also talk about the product culture, the tech culture at Razorpay. And I think your engineers are, the envy of many other startups. I'm sure you've had a tough time trying to retain them in the last year. So how do you make hiring decisions? For example, we spoke to Zerodha's CTO recently, and he said they just have 33 engineers in their tech team, and only 2 of them have quit, in the last 10 years, and that too for personal reasons. So how do you look at, building the tech team? How do you look at retaining them?
I think our philosophy of hiring engineering has obviously evolved over time. And today, when we are hiring someone, we usually think about, are they really passionate about what they are, working at? Are they the best people in, let's say, back-end technology or front-end technology or mobile technology, right? Are they the top engineer in the country, and we really like to hire people, who are at the top of their game, right? And who feel very passionately about their craft and who can relate to the problem that we are solving.
So if I'm a engineering graduate, how do I impress you?
Well, you can show you what you have built.
Okay.
Right? Instead of just the
So I have to do some side hustle in college, like your SDS labs in
that's
IIT.
one way. So, in college you have a lot of free time. Just so instead of just playing games, at night you can actually build something, right, and put it out there for people to use. Like that's the best engineering experience that any.
That's the way I guess one gets a job at Razorpay. But on your interests, apart from karting and table tennis, what are the other things you guys are interested in? I think Harshil has a black belt in karate or something. So you need to watch out. But what are your interests, Shashank? Are you into music?
Oh yeah, I play piano quite regularly. I'm a lot into social dances, so I dance salsa quite a bit with my wife.
Nice.
And that's how I met her, also. In fact, right. So other than that, regular stuff like I read a lot. I also talk to a lot of founders, especially in the early days, and help them. Right, with whatever support that they need in the initial days, like that's the period when most founders.
Yeah, in fact, both of you are also investors,
Yeah.
right? So, do you find time to spend with some of your angel?
Weekends we try to take out some time to speak to new founders, speak to founders that we have invested in, like where they need advice on. So I think that's where a lot of our weekends go, and I think it's a lot of. Of course, it's helpful to them. But I think it brings a lot of help to us as well. Like we get to learn.
In terms of new things.
Yeah, we just get to learn what's happening in the ecosystem. What is the new generation thinking? What are they building now, right? And it gives us a lot of thoughts on what we could do next.
Yeah, and as our our personal philosophy, and even from a Razorpay perspective, I think one thing that we are really keen on is how we can encourage a lot more entrepreneurship in the country, right? Because we're still, a lot of people think there's a lot of funding and valuation and all those things, but I personally think we are still scratching the surface of what technology entrepreneurship can really do for the country. I think we need like 100 times more tech entrepreneurs coming on into the ecosystem.
Right. So, if there is one thing that you would like to change about Harshil, what would that be?
I think he himself would probably want to be more fit.
Harshil?
About Shashank, hard to say.
Nothing, I'm perfect.
I was just thinking, what should I tell her? There's so many that I have to think.
Yeah, the more sensational, the better.
Of course. No, I think he spends too much time working at times, and I had to.
Really?
Yes,
He's telling me about salsa and music.
He's mostly
and
working. It's all once in a while. Most times, like forget weekdays, even weekends, he's mostly on calls all day.
It's because he has a tough CEO. Maybe
No, not really. I have to pull him out. Like sometimes I pull him out. SHK, please stop working. Let's go out for some time. Like let's take some break for 30 minutes for an hour at least. So I think even his wife complains about it.
Okay, then you need to take that seriously. Harshil, it's been quite a journey from Jaipur to this sprawling office, in the heart of Bengaluru. But what's next for Razorpay? I mean, you've broadened the scope of services from payments to lending to neo-banking. What's the next phase of Razorpay going to look like?
See, our vision is fairly simple, right? We want to power the entire financial ecosystem for businesses, specifically internet businesses, right? Like the idea being that if tomorrow, if you start an internet business and you want to manage your money, you want to get access to credit, you want to open a current account, whatever you want to do with money, Razorpay should be one single platform that helps you do it end to end. Like I'll give you an example of how AWS is for a developer or for the tech team of a company. You want to do the same for the business finance world.
So the AWS of the
business finance ecosystem, right? Like you open an account with Razorpay.
So what are the gaps missing then?
There are a lot of things, right? Like we are now doing banking, lending, and payments, right? But within that, there are so many moving parts. Right? For example, in lending, we do corporate credit cards now. We do proper working capital loans. But for example, there's inverse discounting. There's so many other possibilities of credit in various journeys. Like you have foreign receivables and foreign trade transactions that we don't do in any forms. So that is one aspect. Similarly, when I talk about transaction banking, right? Like we have payroll management, we do tax management, but for example, you have a lot of import-export transactions, we don't manage that. You have treasury operations, we don't manage that. So there are so many things that a business has to do about, like when you think about managing money, and founders have to spend their own time or get a CFO who spend their time on figuring these out. And there are multiple different vendors and there are different tools and systems that don't talk to each other. the thing that we really want to do is become that single platform on which all of this communication happens, and you don't have to deal with multiple tools and reconciliation challenges and errors and omissions that happen because of dealing with multiple different parties.
And you also want to be a global company. That's your larger ambition. I mean, you've been making acquisitions, you've entered Malaysia. So will it start with Southeast Asia and then perhaps look at other continents?
Yes, our primary focus is in the emerging world, right? Like the emerging markets, because we feel that the kind of challenges that markets like India and similarly Southeast Asia face are very different than Western markets. And I don't think US companies or European companies can really solve those problems in the way the Indian ecosystem needs or the others emerging markets need. Because like these all markets are very similar, right? You have complex regulations around and there are a lot of restrictions on how money can be moved. And I think as a company, we have learned that a lot and we are experts in building solutions around that ecosystem. So we are doing it in India, we want to take it to other markets in Southeast Asia and in other emerging markets where the problems and the ecosystem, the playing field is very similar.
Right. Will Razorpay ever become a bank? Is that an ambition you have?
For us, the ambition is not about becoming a bank or not becoming a bank. The ambition is what I laid out to you, right? Like the vision that we want to ensure that the business is able to manage all form of money flows on our platform. Now, if a bank helps us achieve that vision better, we would definitely pick that up. If we can do it without the overhead of becoming a bank ourselves, we'll be okay with that as well.
When will you look at an IPO?
So IPO, I think
after you become a decacorn.
Hopefully, we'll become even bigger than that. But the way I put it is that I think our payment business is scaled well. We generate good amount of revenues. It's cash flow breaking even now. So if we were just a payments company, we could go public even right now. But I think our ambitions are broader. We want to go public as a full stack financial services company. And for that, we need to scale up our Razorpay X and our Razorpay Capital offerings as well. So we want to give at least 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years.
For those to scale up to similar scale as payments and then go public as a full stack financial services company.
Right. And Harshil, based on everything that you see today, what in your mind are your biggest challenges as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think, entrepreneurship is full of challenges and that's what we are here for, right? So I think the biggest challenges at this scale is just to keep up with that scale, right? Like the organization is growing 100, 200, 300% year over year, like in terms of metrics. But internally, our organization naturally can't scale up that rapidly, right? Your systems, people, processes, all of these things break when you try to scale them 2x, 3x. So how do you maintain that pace of growth, but at the same time ensure that the core crux of your culture, which has helped us get here so far, we don't lose that. I think besides that, I think there are of course general business challenges. We operate in a regulated space, so we are always very watchful of
how RBI say.
How regulations are shaping up, and does that significantly change our business suddenly tomorrow?
Right. Let me then end with a rapid fire. Jaipur or Bangalore?
I'll say you spend your youth in Bangalore, but your retirement is in Jaipur.
That's a long time away.
Yeah.
Dal bati churma or masala dosa?
Dal bati churma, hands down.
US IPO or India IPO?
Hard to say. I think dual listing.
Payments or lending?
Payments.
Okay. US or India?
India, definitely.
India. Okay. Future of money?
Transparent.
Unicorn or decacorn?
Of course, decacorn, or maybe if there is a word for 100 billion, but yeah.
On that note, thank you so much, Harshil, for talking to us.
Thank you so much, Chandra.
Thank you.